Welcome back to Eagle Countdown. We're in the final stretches here tonight of our third night of Eagle Countdown. And, we're counting down this time together. We got all these great speakers and guests. I just got a text from somebody who saw our discussion with Ted Cruz. Senator Ted Cruz was on the floor fighting with Schumer, not physically fighting with Schumer, but debating Chuck Schumer. And then he was over here an hour and a half later, talking with us about the judicial confirmation. John, I want to point out, I did suggest to him that he do a podcast on the confirmation. He did a podcast called Verdict. The Verdict with Ted Cruz was a most watched podcast. So I've just encouraged, he liked that. So maybe we helped him instead of just him helping us.
He promised to do that.
He did. He liked it. He liked the idea. He's really smart. I mean, I know you think you're smart, but I mean, he's really smart. And I need to laugh. Not even a smile.
No, you're absolutely right.
Oh, okay. Mark Ludwig. Now, our Eagles that have been at Eagle Council are gathering know Mark Ludwig. Mark Ludwig is a St. Louis friend. He lives in St. Louis, although now he goes all around the country. His organization is called Americans for Equal Shared Partnership.
Parenting.
Excuse me. Everybody,
like
easy. Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. Geez, what's the website?
AFESP.com.
AFESP.com. And I spoke at one of their conferences, national conference, I think in Washington, D.C. or in Virginia. And a group coming together because Mark had the experience, a lot of people do, of they're in a situation where to maintain their parenting, they're in a divorce, they're dealing with custody, and the courts have been so unfair. I won't forget, I've told Mark before, when Phyllis Schlafly wrote the book, Who Killed the American Family? And I could picture her standing leaning against the door in my office. She came out of hers and she said, I've written the book and now I've got to the last chapter. And she said, the last chapter, you got to explain how we, fix this. And she said, this is tough because of the family court system and on this issue. Mark Ludwig has charted a path where he's gotten these voices together. Some are Republicans, some are Democrats, some are liberals, some are apolitical, and said when it comes to equal shared parenting, how can we make our voices heard? So welcome, Mark, and your work is inspirational, and you do a great job. We're talking this at the countdown about one of the questions that we ask everybody is, how's this administration done? And we say promises made, promises kept. What's a promise kept? Well, it may not be related to your work, it may be. But what's a promise kept that you think that the administration has lived up to?
Yeah, it's sort of a cousin issue of ours. My main issue is Title IV-D reform.
You better explain that to everybody. I know enough about it to be dangerous, but go ahead.
And Phyllis, it's a shame because I knew her for 20 years, but the issue didn't affect me until after she was gone. And what I would have given to go back in time now and talk to her about Title IV-D reform.
What we do is just talk to John, and we just figured John knows almost exactly that way. So you try that, but keep going.
Yeah, Title D reform basically stemmed out of the fact that 50 years ago, or back when I was a kid, in the 70s, my dad was a chemical engineer. So if 12 years into the marriage they would have gotten a divorce, it would have been very hard for my mom to get a job competing with kids coming out of high school and college. Mm-hmm. And so there was a chance that if she wasn't receiving child support for a period of time, she would have ended up on welfare. And so the government came up with a program with a great intent, but as you know, every program starts out with great intent before it gets into what everyone knows as mission creep. Yeah. And the intent was to go after what was known as the true deadbeat dads who were intentionally not paying child support, and as a result, the ex-spouse was ending up on welfare. What ended up happening, there were two major revisions in 88 and 96 that basically threw every child support order in the country into that program. So it was no longer a means-tested program, it was anyone. Okay. And so if I'm a child enforcement worker and I'm getting a bonus and getting ranked based on how well I do on tracking down child support, and I get two files on my desk. One is a means-tested program. The challenge is that person may have changed jobs 3 times, may have changed residence 3 times. Support order may only be $100 a month, and if I track them down, I may not even get it. Right. But now, because of the new additional 19 million child support orders that were lumped in, middle-class families, I can go after this one instead. Okay. And that's what we've noticed is, as a result, the people the program was intended to go after are getting off scot-free. And the big challenge is it's affecting custody issues. Right. All across the country, if you talk to anyone, they'll tell you in the majority of situations, one parent is going to be the superior custodial parent, and one's the inferior non-custodial parent. And a lot of the reason is states are chasing federal funding that's coming in, tracking down child support orders. Well, if you give a 50-50, where each person, just for sake of argument, each person gets every other week, it's not a big need for child support. Each person has a bedroom, each person takes care of clothes, each person takes care of their own expenses. But if you can offset the time schedule, now you've got a reason to try and run money through the government for that tracking.
So what has the Trump administration done that's been a positive?
On this issue, not as much yet. On our cousin issue is CPS issues. And as Phyllis talked about in her book, their goal is to break up the family on the other side. And two ways they're doing it. One is Title 4D. The other is Title 4E, which is CPS issues. And
CPS stands for? John?
Child Protective Services.
Okay. Oh, I wasn't sure. Okay, CPS. Federal CPS or state?
Federal. Well,
okay.
it's the federal program that affects the state level.
Okay.
And once again, there's federal funding that is coming into the states.
Right.
And as a result, most people, when they think of CPS, they think of either sexual abuse or physical abuse. Ironically, in only 15% of the cases where kids are removed from their parents, it's because of abuse. The other 85% is because of neglect. Now, the term neglect is a very wide range of net that they put out there. And
so, what's the positive? Has the Trump administration on this cousin issue been better?
He's been very good on this. He just signed an executive order June 24th, and in there, a big key that he did was allowed for kinship, because in the past, CPS workers wanted to take the parents away from any family member and put them in foster home because they would get a bonus on that. And Trump signed an order giving preference to kinship. So if there's grandparents or some other parent, that way the child isn't traumatized of losing their whole family.
Right.
Yeah, they're traumatized, they're taken away from their parents, but they're put with grandparents or aunts or uncles.
We're talking, Mark Ludwig is the founder of Americans for Equal Shared Parenting, AFESP.org. John, you started to say something? Did you want to? .com, sorry. Jeez, .com. You should own .org too. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm not sure if Phyllis would have agreed with you, Mark, that the program was well-intentioned. She was. The more she dug into it, the more she felt this was really an evil program that had a mindset by which children should be wards of the state, and that social workers and courts should be in charge of micromanaging families and deciding where they go to school, where they go to church even in some cases, and disregarding the wishes of their parents. And yet we have millions of parents in America who are subject to that system through no fault of their own, and against their will. So she tried hard to, first of all, explain the problem and then come up with solutions to it.
It is amazing. We do the radio show, and a lot of our Eagles are participating, and there's issues. And you get on the radio and you talk to folks about this problem, and the stories are like out of a movie. They really are. They make the Elian Gonzalez when they came into that home. They make that look mild mannered in terms of deception and the seizing of kids, and then the barrier, the uphill climb to try to get back rights. What's the reality though right now in terms of your group? When I spoke to them, I was really impressed by the Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. There were different backgrounds, different again, political persuasions, different economic level. How are you doing at getting the voice heard? Are people responding? Are you starting to have people
it definitely
recognize?
Resonates across the country. It's the only issue I've ever seen where it crosses party lines, crosses gender lines, crosses racial lines, crosses socioeconomic
Yeah, it's not
lines.
just the men. It's not. I was surprised in a way. I got to your meeting. It was as many women as men that were saying we've got the same problem. So sorry to interrupt you.
Because people realize that a child needs both parents, and I'll fight. Most people perceive it as a men's issue.
Right.
It's not a men's issue. It's a children's issue.
Yeah.
And the children need a right to both of their parents. I believe that God created opposites to attract for a reason, because they each have strengths and they each have weaknesses. And so one person's weakness is compensated by the other person's strength. So if you rip either both parents out of a child's life, or in my, for our shared parenting community, one parent out of a child's life, half of that DNA is gone, and half of the experience and wisdom that child can get is gone.
So what could be coming? What should be coming? What's the hope for families, parents, as they look towards the future? What are the possibilities for reform.
There's a lot of hope now, especially because of this executive order he signed on June 24th. As I said, it's sort of a cousin issue with Title 4E. And I do want to, by the way, mention Connie Reguli is one of the big champions in the country that's educated me on this issue, and she was a big part of that.
Okay.
But because that door has been opened, I believe now a door is open for us to get our issue through there. So,
who's the champions in the Congress? Anybody?
Andy Biggs is without a doubt the best that we have in Congress. He has been great on this.
Anybody in the Senate?
On the Senate, we have a few people that we're working with. My senator, Senator Blunt, has been dynamite to help out. He's been through a situation himself, but his staff has been very good. And we do have several members of the Values Action Team type caucus.
So your organization doesn't endorse candidates, so you're not here doing that. But you can talk about the direction of the country and what's at stake. Sort of on this issue and more broadly, how do you tell people, hey, we've got to continue to raise our voice, but it does matter who's in power?
Well, with my issue in particular, both the CPS issue and the Title 4D reform, false allegations run rampant. If somebody wants to get retribution on somebody and has vengeance, boy, let's just file a false allegation and their kids are removed from them.
Wow.
And when you look at the Violence Against Women's Act that a certain individual helped spearhead, that's somebody that I do not want to see in office. And then when I see what happened to Brett Kavanaugh and I saw the way Kamala Harris attacked him with allegations that we now, obviously everyone realizes were blatantly false, that's what we go through on a daily basis. And to be honest, even though I wish Kavanaugh didn't go through that, I'm glad he did, because I think it opened people's eyes to this is what happens in family court every single day.
John?
Mark, you passed over a little bit about how middle-class families got caught up into that system, which was really not lawful, in my opinion. Title IV, which is what you're talking about, that's Title IV of the Social Security Act, and that is a division of the law which is supposed to encompass public aid, people on public assistance. And how did it happen that people are not on public assistance are nevertheless subject to the same rules or similar rules involving child support and child custody? I mean, there's no federal jurisdiction for that to happen, and yet somehow the bureaucracy has taken that over because that's where the money is, basically. They cannot collect child support from the low-income men because, the majority of working people in this country do not earn enough money to support two households. And so the money simply isn't there to fund the child support system.
But has anybody ever challenged it?
Well,
is there a constitutional argument or not really?
I think there should be legal arguments. People have tried in the past and failed, and partly because the federal courts have refused to entertain a lawsuit having to do with marriage, child custody, or child support. They say that's not a federal issue, and they refuse to hear those cases.
Exactly.
So it's not a federal issue, John, but the Social Security Act is what's being used to enforce it.
That's the bizarre thing, because they've used the federal money that goes to support the state public aid systems through the Social Security Act, and they've used that as a lever to encourage the states to change their state laws having to do with these family court issues.
That is exactly the name.
He knows everything. He knows everything. He's
they always say follow the money. It's the money from Title 4D that's influencing the states, because shared parenting is a state issue, but they're being influenced by this federal money.
Well, Ed, you mentioned Phyllis Schlafly's book, Who Killed the American Family.
Yep.
It's
Great
all in
book.
there.
So, is that where you got it from?
It's all in there.
John gave me a copy of that a couple months ago, and that is already
okay, guys. This is all
highlighted.
great. You guys are all having a good time together. But what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? I mean, who's going to do something about it? Is it supposed to be the Trump administration and the Social Security Department? Or is it Social Security? Aren't there Social Security ALJs? Couldn't somebody? Is there no path here? No. What's the reform? What can you do?
Two options that we have, in my eyes. I think there's also a judicial, but that's just not my background. I believe two options. One is to get some Title 4D reform at the statute level. But in order to do that, we're going to have some major changes in Congress, because we have some opponents on the other side.
Who's the opponents? You mean Kamala Harris?
That's definitely one of them.
In the House, I mean, who's the the liberal Democrats, they just oppose any changes to this? This is the system they like? Or is it the swamp bureaucrats?
Much of this law was enacted by Republicans, and it was enacted as part of what most of us thought was the great welfare reform passed by the Gingrich Congress in 2005 and 1995 and 96. And because the mindset then was welfare reform means collecting child support from the men in order to support women who would otherwise be on welfare. That was the theory behind it. Of course, that never worked. And it can't work because, as I said a moment ago, it seems like, but it bears repeating, a majority of men do not earn enough money to support two households. And the whole theory of child support is not support for children. It's a misnomer. It's supporting the mother of the man's children in a second household where she's living with her new boyfriend. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
It will never put him on the board. I mean, he's got to be on the board. I'm getting comments from Facebook and YouTube. Hi, Mark. Thanks for all you do to help families. Mark, do you believe we're seeing generation after generation of childhood trauma due to the family court system and fatherlessness?
Oh, yeah. From the ACEs study, there's...
What's that mean, ACEs study?
Adverse childhood effects...
Okay.
There's people that are better at the
Is it on your website if they go there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
But
Sorry.
yeah, there's people who have, when they talk about childhood trauma, whether it's sexual abuse or one of the big traumas is being separated from the parents. Ironically, if you remember back with the Mexico border, they kept talking about those 3,000 children that were separated from their parents.
Yeah, it was the end of the
Well,
world.
what about the 19 million children that are separated from their, non-custodial parent? What about the 237,000 people that are separated from both parents by CPS every year?
Well, you're not asking me. Ask John. I'm not. Is it constitutionally illegal for CPS to come into your home without a warrant?
It definitely should not be, but it happens every day.
Yeah, I get on my direct messages on Twitter, we've had some folks, Rachel Bruno, do you know that name? Rachel Bruno had a horrendous experience where they took her children. She finally got them back. It's a compelling story. She's been on my show.
What's amazing, they've been taking them for people homeschooling, they consider it neglect if they're in poverty.
Yeah. Okay, well, Mark Ludwig, the group is Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. Doesn't sound like, I hate to do this but we're just honest, there's been enough done in the
exactly. We have a lot more to do, so we need someone who's going to support us more.
Keep persuading.
As opposed to the alternative that could get in there. That there's no doubt in my mind that a Biden-Harris would be detrimental to our issue based on the way they treated Brett Kavanaugh with false allegations, based on the Violence Against Women's Act, the way they're treating false allegations, the red flag laws.
Right.
It would be devastating for our issue.
Americans for Equal Shared Parenting is the group, AFESP.com, to find out more. The book that we refer to as Who Killed the American Family, which is available on our website and also everywhere you buy books. And we're going to take another...